Hello, everyone. My name is Boris Mann, and we are hosting another ATProto Community Tech Talk. I work with the AT Community Fund, a nonprofit that collects funds to support ATProto hacking and events. And today we're going to talk about Smoke Signal with Nick, which is 1 year old. Uh, Yay! Take it away, Nick.
All right, I'm going to share my screen and kick off this presentation, and hopefully it's as easy as that. Share screen, yeah, the whole thing. Perfect. Cool. Can you all see the presentation?
Yes, we can.
Do you see the speaker notes and time on the side?
No.
Excellent. Great. So the only downside of doing this is that I don't actually see either the Zoom window nor the participant view. So as we're doing this, feel free to chime up with questions, politely interrupt me, um, something like that. Send up a smoke signal, and I'm gonna do this as a very casual, retrospective, and sort of discussion about, what we've been working on, how it's turned out, some context and backstory, etc. So, great, cool. This is Smoke Signal Turns 1. It's a retrospective on building in the atmosphere. First, oh man, I don't have my speaker comments. Oh, I do. The presentation is lovely. So I like to start presentations like this with gratitude. I think I've said this before in a few different ways. I'm extremely thankful for the people who have donated, given to me their time and energy to make Smoke Signal what it is. Obviously, it wouldn't be there without people using it, and it also wouldn't be something people wanted to use without feedback and discussion, a lot of discussion, nor the support of people like Boris, who has been a champion for over a year at this point, and that's been massive for me. Honestly, I don't think Smoke Signal would be where it is without Boris's help and attention. Also, Ted, you are a fantastic person, and you've been instrumental. Tom, Rudy, Brian, Ryan, Miss Boba, Paul. There's a bunch of folks. So thank you. Let's fucking go. Yoink. Nope, maybe not. Oh. Of course. Of course. As I go to do things, it says no. Great. So this is me. I don't have a Wikipedia page anymore because someone deleted it because I'm not relevant. I've been described as a dad, a partner, a software engineer, an author, a swing dancer, a taco enthusiast. I'm working on my full sleeve. It's making good progress. Queer. I'm, a queer polyamorous 41-year-old white dude in Ohio, for better or worse. I'm
Nick, I think we lost your screen.
What? Lovely. One more time. Now, do you see my screen?
Yes.
Yep.
And you hear me. Fantastic. Great. Yeah, this is me. njerakinis.me. My last name is pronounced Jerakinis. It's Greek. There's a little fun anecdote. My full name is Kyriakos Nicholas Jerakinis, the Greek firstborn of the family. And then my mom was like, eh. And then my brothers are Benjamin Henry and Charles Douglas, because they get nice boring names, which is kind of funny. Early Bluesky user, I'm like in the 2500 range. I think I'm like 2630, depending on how you count, because some early IDs were scrubbed because there were test accounts. And according to Dame, I am barely active in the ATProto world. So, just to sort of set this up. But here we're actually going to talk about Smoke Signal. Hooray, it turned 1. We celebrated the 1 year anniversary on the 14th. It was July 13th of last year that I got DNS finally working, and then on the 14th announced it and started talking about it. My kid has been making all of the logos, so, hooray, kid labor. A brief history of how we got to where we are. This is just a recap. In 2023, I created this thing called AP events, and I was interested in doing events on that protocol. It didn't really work very well because identity mobility and authentication is really core to so much of what actual distributed, decentralized, I know I said the D word, uh, protocols and interaction looks like. 2024 launched Smoke Signal, created the Y at protocol post, was the first, I'm going to say the first uh, application to like launch in a production way with OAuth support. Pushed out Blue Badge and at ProtoCamp, an experiment in badges, awards, and attestation. Did the original, or did the first tech talk with Boris. Formed Lexicon community, created a Python version of an authentication and permission gateway AIP, and then fast forward to 2025, Atmosphere Conf, open source launch, ripped out a whole bunch of code from Smoke Signal and put it into some reusable crates, rewrote that Python app AIP into Rust using those crates, implemented badges for Smoke Signal in the project's showcase and gnosco, and then moved the blog and documentation over, created a signing service, the XRPC, S stands for service, Semian, and of course, here we're doing the 1 year anniversary. So that's a lot of fun. The past year has been wild. The current app supports a whole bunch of really fun things that I'm super, super happy about. And I don't think I duplicated anything in this. Oh, I did. AIP OIDC. Well, you can't win them all. It's open source under the MIT license. I don't really give a shit about licensing in a lot of ways. So I picked something that was super flexible and permissive. Here we are. So Smoke Signal is a full Jetstream consumer. It does record imports. It supports images, has activity aggregate views, supports both at protocol flavored OAuth and OIDC. The guts, like it actually has been shrunk down quite a bit, and most of the heavy lifting of the core at protocol functionality has been moved into crates, and I'm using those across a bunch of different projects now. There's widgets, XRPC, webhooks is something I'm exploring. There's the whole lexicon community, lexicon stuff. There's badges, admin control, switched out from SQLite to Postgres, integrated open search, and then of course it's now an actual real app view with XRPC functions that you can invoke in and from other applications. I know I'm just sort of like spitting through all of this. Any questions or thoughts so far? Nice, great. So,
Like I said, a giant list. Let's pause to let me
sure.
poke on a couple of things. I think
Heard,
there were a
heard.
couple of I think there were a couple of things that were super notable about Smoke Signal. Um, One of those things is I think White Wind was the first app, and it was really
Yeah.
interesting, and people were
Mhm.
excited, and it was sort of the Japanese community coming out, and a bunch of us were like, "Oh, we're not really connected to what's happening there. That's super cool." And then Nick came out, and then there was a bunch of questions immediately, and Nick was like, "Yeah, I've kind of done this before." And his write up of trying it on ActivityPub and then doing it on ATProto. I think the other thing that was interesting that isn't talked about really very much, that I don't actually even know if you talk about still, is do you use the relay in the new version,
Oh
or
yeah,
do you
so
go?
it's consuming off of Jetstream. Originally I had
And
done some work.
your screen is gone again, by the
Oh
way.
man, really?
Thanks,
That's
Victoria.
mildly infuriating. I'm so sorry. Uh, what if we do? Well, we're just gonna try it again. Cool. All right.
Yeah,
Um,
that works.
Great. Um, yeah. So it is a Jetstream consumer, so it is like pulling off of the Jetstream stream. It's not. I'm not consuming Seaboard information directly anymore. I it in the original version, I was doing some relay consumption as part of my local dev environment. I have a relay consumer active. But it's Jetstream. It reduces the bandwidth and overhead, so it worked pretty well.
Great. Gautam, go ahead, ask your question.
Sorry, so I have two questions, and one of them you may answer later. Um, but the first question is, how I would like to know how your local dev environment is set up. I'll be giving a talk, and I've been trying to learn. I've been trying to do it. I'm trying to create an app view myself, built on
Mhm.
top of, and so I've been finding. Uh, creating a local environment that doesn't really connect outside too much is
Yeah.
hard. And then the other question I was going to ask is, how are you making use of Postgres? What are the is there like only the parts that are not related to the user that you're putting into Postgres, or are you keeping a copy of what you're putting onto the PDS in Postgres as well? Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so first there's a project on here called Tangled Smoke Signal Local Dev. Cool. Yeah, so there's a project on here called Local Dev. This is basically my dev environment. I run a copy of, or I run an instance of PLC, so like the PLC, did method PLC servers. I run a PDS for local development. And then I also run an internal DNS server and then a mail dev server. And what this does is this allows me to, with configuration, say, hey, whenever I'm trying to resolve a development did or handle, connect against this local PLC instance. And the DNS configuration bit allows me to use split DNS within Tailscale to say that the specific configured pyroclastic.cloud domain needs to resolve against my local DNS service. And then there's a tool called did-admin, which doesn't sound very fun. It basically is a service that lets me like generate random accounts, and what it does is under the hood, it actually calls the PLC instance with an admin password. It creates an invite code, creates an account with a random name like fabulousfish.pyroclastic.cloud, and then sets the password to just password, so to make it easier to authenticate. So that allows me to have like development local accounts and app passwords and all of that fun stuff with a real working instance. And I just connect to it with Tailscale. So Tailscale manages the SSL certificates and does all of the heavy lifting.
Could you post that that link? That looks like a really helpful document. Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
I posted a link to the
Perfect.
Tangled in the chat, and we'll share it afterwards.
Nice, excellent, cool. Oh, and then the other question, Postgres. Yeah, so so the reason I'm actually using Postgres is because I wanted to use the easiest tools possible, or the most available tools possible, to allow for a smoke signal to run in like the smallest of instances or the largest of instances. So the things that I'm storing in it are, OAuth session management things. So like the migrations, for example, include, oh, that's not it.
Yeah. Can you blow that up? It's really hard for me to read your
Yeah, absolutely.
text on your screen.
For sure. So migrations, so I'm including events. So I do keep basically a local cache
Screen is gone.
Screen
of identities. Really, what the shit?
For the record, before Nick's first tech talk, we were experimenting with him giving his presentation through the Apple Vision Pro. It was really fun, and it made me seasick, so we did it another way.
And it's going to have you download Zoom. That's a bunch of bullshit. Yonk. Well, I'm doing this. Congratulations. We're all doing IT today. Isn't that exciting? Excuse me 1 second. I'm going to stop sharing my screen while I get this happening. Yeah. In the meantime, yeah, Postgres allows me to store more information in a distributed way. So I can, have multiple instances running. And then I'm also using Postgres to share the context or share additional schemas across all of the apps, gnosco, showcase, etc. So it works pretty well. I am duplicating some information. Basically a lot of information is duplicated all over the place, right? There's the actual source of truth, which is the PDS itself. Like the PDS does describe what needs to exist, or like what data it uses and how, and that's legit. And then there's Postgres, which is storing some cached information, handles, identity lookups. It stores a copy, like basically a BSON, like a JSON structure in the database of the RSVP and event records, plus some indexes for fast lookup. And then in OpenSearch, I'm expanding some of the event records into textual fields for full text search.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. I'm just finding that email from Boris real quick so I can, I'm still not sharing my screen, right? Because now I'm on my calendar and this is just gonna be embarrassing. No, great, okay. All right, let's try this again. Join Zoom. Oh, did that work?
Yep.
Hey. Cool. All right. Well, y'all see me, right?
Yeah. And a freeze frame of you from the other one.
Yeah.
Little timeout.
Wait, I'm sorry. Can someone say one more thing real quick?
We're here.
Okay, hey.
Hello.
Wonderful. That's great. Now I'm going to share a screen, and this is the real test. Which desktop one, share open system settings, of course. Yep. Ha. Be right back.
I'm happy at some point to try other video. Whereby is some things that people are trying, but it's really hard when we have big rooms like this. And yes, the Zoom malware that you install on your desktop is not great.
Hi, I'm back, and you can see my stuff, and that's great. All right, and you can see my screen now.
Yep.
Oh, even better. What a happy day. Cool. All right, where were we? Presentation stuff. Yeah, we've done a lot of things. Yeah, so that's the TLDR in Postgres. Other questions?
Let's keep rolling.
Great, cool. Haha, wonderful. So lessons learned. We learned a whole lot of stuff over the development process for all of this. Great. First, Rust is a good call. I've been tinkering with Rust for like 5 years now and using it in a quasi-production environment for at least 3 of those. And now it's been running a good portion of basically all of Smoke Signal for a little, just a hairline over a year, which is pretty great. No, there are no official from Bluesky folks libraries for it. Yes, I originally started using Atrium, and Atrium's a great library, but it does a lot more than I expect. And at the time, custom lexicons was such like a novel thing that Atrium didn't really make it easy to create and reference custom lexicons like the Smoke Signal lexicon, which was originally not a lexicon community thing. So rolled up my own. The ATProto crates that I rolled out are pretty low level. They're not really a full featured client like Atrium is, but it works pretty well for what I'm doing, which is JSON and CBOR serialization and deserialization. So yay. OAuth isn't that hard. I think this is a big controversial statement, and I've been toying with the idea of doing like a master class of like, $20 a head and your funds go to Smoke Signal infrastructure costs to like talk about it. But I feel very comfortable with OAuth, and I think where a lot of people get hung up is that in order to implement ATProto OAuth, you need to understand the OAuth authorization server, protected resource server, and the 20 or so add-ons to OAuth to make it like functional, right? And that includes PAR, it includes Depop, it includes dynamic client registration, which is actually a lot bigger than just what ATProto OAuth supports. So yeah, it's kind of a big thing. It's such an issue that it's probably like the #1 question that I see over the past year regarding questions of like, what the hell am I doing wrong here? And that's sometimes it's Depop, sometimes it's parameterized request and client. authentication. And then sometimes it's, why do I need to have a backend endpoint make the actual call? Why can't I do it from the front end? The answer is usually not easily. So good times. Thoughts on OAuth? I know it's kind of a spicy take, but it's my individual truth. It's my experience truth. Cool.
Go, Tim.
Yeah, I was just gonna, since you asked for thoughts, I was gonna agree. Like, I've been trying to figure out how to make OAuth work in a simple Go application, and there's just so much, because I'm trying to write it for a presentation and
Yeah.
simplify it down, and it's been driving me a little nuts. But yeah.
Yeah. And what's really interesting is that OAuth and identity registration go hand in hand, because you can send a URL as the login hint for any authorization server, and it brings you to that page where you can log into the identity you want or create an account, which I think is pretty handy. And I'm looking forward to I'm looking forward to OAuth scopes really mucking things up, because like with OAuth client metadata, you're supposed to pre-declare what roles and permissions you want, but that could be such like a wide number that it may not fit in like a reasonable sized record. So like I'm worried that everything's going to lean toward wildcards or like blanket requests and blanket permissions. So I don't know. It's going to be an interesting spot. I think there's going to be some trial and error, and what I hope we do is in the atmosphere we end up rolling out in like an example, like a PDS specifically with like the reference implementation first for people to develop against, just to sort of trial and error things. So
Yeah, I just looked, and I know I guess that inline registration was actually new to you, and I showed it to
mhm.
you, and you did implement it in Smoke Signal, which is
Yeah,
a much more memorable URL. So I'll drop it in the link, but basically, if you go into an incognito window and are not logged in, if we have time at the end, I might just show it. You can put in the HTTPS URL of a PDS. So I have the self-hosted PDS, and I can put the URL in there, and it'll put me straight in a sign in or create account flow, and then come all the way back and be logged into Smoke Signal.
yeah,
Also, I think a first of a real app, Nick. So congrats.
yeah, yeah. Paving the way.
Yeah.
One disappointing user experience at a time. I'm a back engineer by trade. Like I'm like, oh yeah, let's implement weird Depop algorithm shit. And all of my UIs are like black text on white background with paragraphs or lists. So thank God for Balma. Actually, that brings me to this one, which are Balma and Pico CSS have been fine. And like, yeah, Smoke Signal could use like better design and UI, you know. Strengths and weaknesses, you know what I mean? So yeah. Very closely related, there's this whole thing that there's no going at it alone. I feel really good about not making all of my decisions about Smoke Signal in a bubble and asking people, nay, bothering people regularly about information like, hi, what should this field be named? It's named this over here and that over there. But should we go off of schema? Should we go off of schema.org? Should we go off of what other event applications have called it? Is there like, you know, reason behind the product decisions of why First Book calls it a description versus text, or why they break things out the way that they do? Like those are all valid questions, and they've led to a better user experience. So standing on the shoulders of giants. AI has been a 10x enabling force. I know this is actually a controversial thing, but I got, not to get personal, the end of last year was pretty rough, and then the end of the spring was really rough. And to get out of the hump, I was like, oh, well, you know, I have experience working with AI and doing agentic coding and stuff. So I'm just gonna like try to vibe code to get out of my slump. And like, holy shit, I have probably churned out 100,000 lines of Rust over the past 6 months, and that is not an exaggeration. I think AI and agentic coding has been instrumental, specifically with the Rust programming language, because the compiler is well suited to be verbose and provide very contextual information when there are errors or warnings. And the memory management model lends itself to being so strict that you can, you know, like stuff will break if you just like make a single change as to how some immutable or mutable thing is referenced down a chain. And AI agentic coding, you know, with both text contextual lookups and AST lookups has done a really good job of refactoring in very deep and wide breadths. So that's been really, really helpful. So hooray. Primarily use Claude Code. With that said, I do encourage you to all use GitHub because they pay my mortgage. So, you know, go GitHub. That's my one sponsorship thing. I'll stop. Great, on deck. Okay, any questions about other stuff? Going, you know, working with friends and why I decided not to use Bootstrap. Hint, I rolled dice. I don't know. There's no real reason there. I don't really have much else to say about that. If someone's like, oh, you should have not done AI, I would have been like, yeah, well, I should have launched too. So here we are, you know. Cool. All right, on deck. What are we working on?
There's one question actually, which is,
Oh.
does AI create any future licensing issues?
Oh, probably.
Okay.
I mean, that's like, okay, so here's a hot take. People people get paid to, like, humans get paid to think for a living, right? And AI is trained on work produced by humans. And there's a lot of discussion and I think necessary and healthy debate that needs to occur to talk about intellectual property, credit, and how the legal system and culturally we have not caught up to technology, and it's kind of a shit show. I personally don't think that if you work at one company and write a for loop that iterates over strings and finds the uniqueness of it, and then go to another company and recall that from memory and write the same thing, how that's any different than using the same function that someone else wrote. So intellectual property in code is actually really, really hard to manage. And AI is only going to exacerbate the problem of intellectual property for code. So my blanket solution is to say, hey, I'm openly using AI to build this stuff. There's a claude.md file in there. It's pretty obvious what I'm doing and how. And also, it's permissively licensed in using a BSD derivative, the MIT license. So if you want to use it commercially, that's great. Don't blame me if something sucks. If you want to use it open source, that's great. Don't blame me if something sucks. And like, I'm done. So yeah, I don't know. I'm not really sure things like code, like intellectual property code search is anything more than something to pay lawyers for. I don't think it's real. Yeah, which guy? Just someone raise their hand. I'm sorry. Oh, you're muted. Terribly sorry.
Sorry, I raised my hand again, but then I decided that my question will just derail this conversation off, so I'd rather get back.
Okay, that's fair. I am on slide 13 of 37, so just FYI.
Yeah, let's go.
I may have been wrong. Okay, on deck, smoke signal as infrastructure. So this is something that Boris said to me a long time ago that I was like, oh yeah, I guess that makes sense, and didn't really think about it. Smoke signal, in order for events and tooling to actually widely exist, we need to provide some sort of baseline, some sort of bus, right? Or mechanism for other applications that want to build more rich and complicated and better applications that manage events to use the innards of, right? Same way a lot of apps use the bsky.app APIs and XRPC functionality. They aren't creating their own indexes. They aren't creating their own search systems. They aren't creating their own data stores that have events that are out in the wild and all of that stuff. So Smoke Signal needs to support that. I've started recently rolling out XRPC methods and doing some basic load tests by having widgets reference them in an unauthenticated way. There are some limitations, and those are definitely going to evolve over the near future. I'm currently working out where those procedures and functions need to exist as lexicon community owned things as part of that lexicon versus things that are smoke signal specific. But I think that's going to be a fun process, and I'm looking forward to doing that a lot more. Bringing the atmosphere to the web. I think it's really dangerous for us to build tools for only people that are using it inside of our tools, right? That's like, I don't want to create another meetup where the only way you can use it or see the events or interact or build communities or create connections is if you only have an @protocol handle and you only access it by logging into Smoke Signal. That really defeats the purpose of creating a fair and open web, right? So, creating widgets like these, creating views where the data created inside of these tools can be made public and pushed out onto websites and blogs through WordPress plugins or whatever, right? Creating RSS or Atom feeds of events using calendar export functionality. All of these things need to occur to move this stuff out and create a more accessible like view of this data. So that's kind of what that's about. Event organizer tools is a big one. How can we supercharge event organizers to like take control of what they do and reach the people that they want to reach? I've been playing with this thing called XRPC webhooks as a concept. Like, how can we create strongly typed, openly defined via lexicons RPC structures and functions, and then create strongly typed hooks, XRPC functions that are authenticated with the existing, service authentication stuff, and create tools that extend the functionality. Like, yes, a record being created by an RSVP is handy, but it may not have the entire context of the person sharing their email address or other questions and answers that are custom or specific to Smoke Signal that are not part of the core lexicon, right? There are features that can extend the way that applications are built, that build off of these core types that aren't actual long-lived data and shouldn't be for privacy concerns. And I think we need to explore what ephemeral records and ephemeral events look like, not on the big bus, So this is what a dashboard would look like if someone wanted to create an emailer that had triggers for when someone says they want to go to an event or they changed from going to not going, etc. These are sort of things that event organizers and community builders, could use to like engage their audience. Next is, what is a decentralized multi-service profile? Oh God, sorry, Kat.
No, no worries. Let's can you go back to the email one here? So obviously Nick's been prototyping this. And what's been really interesting about this in the XRPC kind of model is all of these things end up being a cluster of swappable third-party services.
Yes.
So, and I wanted to highlight that because that's some of the really, really interesting part. So, Autumn, to your question, yes, this is for private data, which we don't generally have in the system, but we know we need private data. I don't put bare Zoom links on the internet because I have held tech talks that I've been rated. So that's one of these things, is needing this pattern. The other pattern is I actually do need to reach into your email. Lots of people are not calendar driven. So getting an email 24 hours before, getting an email an hour before. So the information with the Zoom link that is at the top of your list is right there, is a flow that's necessary for successful showing up at events. How to do that? Well, someone can write and the organizer can link into a third-party service that today might be proof of concept by Nick. But if we actually care about decentralization, we care about not baking everything into Smoke Signal, has to be done in such a way that anyone can hook in there. And the bar of running those little hook apps, XRPC apps that are external, where again, the organizer who has permission gives off to this other thing, is a different technical bar than running all of the Smoke Signal infrastructure. So anything that you can think of that might need other private info is stuff that you could build with this pattern. So I wanted to like really pause and highlight that a little extended version. Anyone have questions about that as a pattern? And of course, this is brand new. Nick has created a pattern. There's this XRPC thing. Bluesky's not using this yet, and it's not in protocol, but it's one way of, okay, as we see many other different data types and apps, there's this other layer that we can hook in. And Autumn, does that answer your question? There will be source code and some writing. Oh no, you have a blog post already, don't you?
Yeah, I've got it right here.
There's a blog post for it. There's a reference implementation. It's called XRPCS-emailer. It's on the Smoke Signal Tangled Git repository, and that is actually deployed live. So if you go to Smoke Signal right now and go to one of the Smoke Signal events and then RSVP to one of those, you should get an email pretty quickly that's going, hey, thanks for RSVPing. Go check out our forum or something like that. And that is that in action. And it brings up a really interesting use case, which is how can one person in an application, so I as an event organizer, have added the emailer webhook endpoint, so that way when I create an event or when someone RSVPs to one of my events, a webhook is fired. That same pattern is really no different than, like, the way that it's applied is no different from someone adding a feed to their Bluesky app thing. If you think of a feed generator as an application that's serving data to the feed viewer, the bsky.app website, this is really no different from the emailer being an application that's serving functionality to Smoke Signal. So how can we adapt and evolve this pattern of tying applications together, and what sort of universal application spec needs to exist to make this work more broadly? Because technically, any application that also wants to publish webhooks that could describe a well-defined webhook type could implement this service model and do it themselves. It doesn't have to be Smoke Signal. It could be White Wind or Flashes or something, right? Like any of the applications that have these sort of events or ephemeral actions that occur. So like, I think this is a really interesting thing to explore in a much broader view, and I'm trying to push the discussion through this XRPC service construct. So, I don't know. It's a lot of fun. Oh, are we good to move on? Yeah, question? What you got?
Oh, you muted. Yeah.
Oh,
Your software muted now.
Sorry about that. Too many mute buttons. Just a quick question. So I'm just scanning through your document on that because this sounds really interesting to me. But who defines the lexicon that is used for the webhook? The provider of the webhook or the invoker of the webhook? Because scanning through it, it looks like the invoker is kind of
probably the invoker is the person saying, hey, these are the types of things that I'm publishing. And I think that there could be some negotiation to like register types of things, but that's got to be a handshake that occurs. I'm going to move on, and I'm going to start moving on more quickly because I've got 17 minutes and 17 slides. So I apologize in advance. So what is a decentralized multi-service profile? Everyone's familiar that if you go to Bluesky, there's a profile that's created with the self reference, and that has your avatar and a display name and a description. That might not be the same information that you want to display on Smoke Signal. And because services authentication gateways like AIP also exist in OIDC worlds where OpenID or OpenID Connect provides some of these profile constructs, how could these be represented to the umbrella or tree of applications that want profile information? So I think there's some interesting things that can be done around having like a global profile, a per application profile, and then override profile content, like, you know, gives cascading style sheets in some ways. And that's something that I think will lead to a better user experience if someone can say, hey, I want this avatar and this display name inherited, but for this site, I want to have this description and this specific link. And that could be useful. Locations. This is actually a big thing. I am not going to elaborate because I've been super excited about @Geo work, and there's a lot of really cool stuff with Styler and Miss Boba, like chugging away at some reference things, and I don't want to take away or misrepresent the work they've been doing. So please go look at that, go bother them, tell them Boris sent you, and it'll be fine. Feeds. Feeds is another really, really big one because what I don't want to do is implement a whole lot of things, right? I want to be as lazy as possible, and I want to say, hey, if you want uh, a list on Smoke Signal of all of the cool events happening in New York, I want someone who actually knows that the cultural, thematic, geographic uh, areas and things to be the experts on how they curate that lists of upcoming events. I think feeds are the way that that's going to happen, and I'm really excited about taking all of this service to service integration, starting with the webhook stuff, and applying that to a more broad view of events. And I think that it can't just be a post event or post type. I think we need to support feeds we need feeds that support a broad list of collections and to be able to like mix and match records within that list of list of records for a feed at any given time, and then use that information both proactively and passively to generate calendars, list views, notifications, etc. So I think that there's like a whole lot of stuff that could happen there. I'm also, and this is a shameless plug, I'm really, really excited about what Graze is doing from my personal and direct interaction with Devin and the rest of the Graze folks. They are thinking about this in really, really broad ways, and it's super exciting. So I'm hoping that as we look at what non-post feeds look like, we can work on that collectively and as a group. RSVP signing. So this is I'm gonna kind of put a pin on this right now because I want to talk about it in a minute with a few screenshots. But being able to attest that an event organizer has accepted an RSVP and is basically confirming it um, opens up interactions like wait lists or different tiers or groups for events, and I think that there's something to be said there. Moderation. I have been avoiding moderation like the goddamn plague. Moderation is a heavy, scary thing, and fortunately, I have only had one spammer on Smoke Signal in the past year, and that was a quick yoink to delete that stuff. Yeah. But people are going to start putting up offensive stuff, and it's going to have to be dealt with. I took the approach of having Smoke Signal subscribe to Jetstream to consume events and RSVPs that are created off Smoke Signal and other sources. But in order for it to be indexed and displayed in the Smoke Signal infrastructure, you have to sign in and say, yes, accept my externally created events and RSVPs. And I did that for two reasons. First, to allow people to opt in to stuff that they want to create. If there's a minority group or an endangered targeted group of individuals that want to not have their events show up on Smoke Signal proper, they can log in and then make sure that that checkbox is, node or never log in, right? And then lo and behold, their events won't show up, and that's great. They can have some protection. Alternatively, if there's some Nazis doing Nazi shit, I don't want their shit showing up on Smoke Signal. And that's the easiest way to block and prevent other people proactively from leaking their garbage into the system. So in order for something to show up, you have to opt in. In order for something to show up that you are not creating through Smoke Signal, you have to opt in. And there's a pretty good denialist policy to say, nuke this identity and never allow them to log in if there are bad actors doing bad stuff. Cool. Figuring out AI. I have a working MCP that allows me to do something really simple. I can open up my Claude desktop thing and say, create an event for this Friday. It's a party at my house, and add to the description, bring your own beer. And what it does is it uses AIP with dynamic client registration to create a session with AIP and then invoke an XRPC or the MCP endpoint, which then invokes XRPC methods to actually create the event. And that works, and it's pretty cool. It's not public, and I'm not releasing it yet because I don't know what the actual policy for Smoke Signal and AI usage should be, or if it's a good idea or not. So it's still kind of experimental. I'll probably release the code once I've removed the swearing out of comments. But I think there's sort of an interesting discussion around what is the role of AI in content creation in this way, or like association of content creation. Like it's me delegating the work, but it's still me doing it. So I don't know. I think there's some interesting things. Okay, interest profiles. I'm interested in events that involve Rust, app protocol, and swing dancing. Rust and app protocol events can be virtual or local, and swing dancing events need to be local, but I'm actually a little flexible. I could do very local or like regionally local, you know? How do I convey that in a safe way on the internet and allow me to find other people that have the same interests and then look at the events that they have, you know? So I think interest profiles and aggregation, both in the content, like topical, like the trifecta, right? Cultural, thematic, and geographic concepts. How do we create ways for people to reference and discover other events and other individuals for the sake of creating community? Yeah, yeah, cool. Any questions on some of that stuff so far? I know it's
Just
like
just keep we're rolling now, Nick. We're rolling.
we're going. Got it. Okay. So smoke signal is not the only tool that displays events and promotes engagement, right? So what I one of the proof of concepts that I created is this thing called Acuto, and it's Spanish for something or another. Um, so basically, it's a single event web page, right, that allows event organizers to showcase one event and then create a way for people to RSVP, buy tickets, have badges assigned, do all sorts of stuff like that. And this is basically the flow. Let's say you've got an event and you go to the website for that event. It displays some information, the location, event mode, all that stuff. And then you go and click login, right? And that brings you to the tickets page. And that tickets page may have the ability to buy a ticket, right? My initial implementation integrates with Tito. So when you click continue, it opens up the dialog and shows the ticket purchase stuff. And then when you purchase your ticket, the application receives the webhook or whatever integration or whatever like channel or channel of data or medium that integration uses, and then notifies. And then the application can create an RSVP on your behalf because you're authenticated in. It can assign badges. So if you're an early bird and you get the early bird badge, poof, it's in. And you can view the tickets that you've purchased, and we can do things like say, hey, you bought a ticket, this is your email address. Not only have you RSVP'd, but I'm attesting in your RSVP that you are a paid participant, like you're a paid attendee or a class of attendee, that you're an early bird or that you're a presenter, etc. And I think that there's a lot of really interesting dynamics at play, right? There's this concept of attestation, of creating this verifiable content that you still own, right? But it was the signature comes from someone else, so you can wave your RSVP around and be like, look, I'm going to the conference, right? There's badges and secondary event or secondary records that can be assigned and distributed. And then there's this general content or concept of how can an event organizer for a single event promote and showcase the activity and the engagement that they're getting. So I think this is sort of a fun experiment. I'm looking forward to doing more with it for AtmosphereConf in the near future.
Live leak on video. Thank you.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Looking ahead. Okay, so I've just got a couple more slides. It says 29 of 37. I thought it was less than that. All right. So the main one, I want apps to use smoke signal as event infrastructure, and I'm trying to make that a thing that can happen, right? Users of events, through whether it be websites or mobile applications, may never go to smoke signal directly, but through authenticated service-to-service API calls, XRPC method invocations, all of the functionality for discovery and search and engagement in that way can operate, right? The apps themselves are still responsible for creating the event records directly on the PDSs, and they do their thing, and I'm not trying to get in the way of that. But all of the additional stuff to support resolution, discovery, search, engagement, things like webhooks, etc., like all of that can exist and exist in a way that services applications. I think as we evaluate, single applications like Acuto or additional functionality like feeds and locations, there's ways that this can be used in pretty significant, this can be used pretty significantly. That also means that I want a variety of applications using the event and RSVP lexicon. It doesn't have to be an event for a meetup that you're hosting in New York in August, right? It could be a conference, it could be a corporate event, it could be something smaller that's between friends, it could be any size and shape of event and RSVP. And it could even be behind the scenes and you may never realize it because you're interacting with other record types and structures, That also leads to the idea that like there can be different monetization strategies that are built on top of all of this functionality. Smoke Signal is open source, and it is a event and RSVP management and discovery application and infrastructure. The emailer service, right? If you want to do something that costs money with ancillary services like Mailgun or Button Down is the name of it. Yes, or anything else, right? Tito or Eventbrite or whatever. These integrations could be premium services that are added on or extend the functionality of what you want to do in ways that still respect and are true to the core value that is users and communities should own entirely and completely their identity and their data, and that nothing done on top of it should change that identity mobility and sense of data ownership and control, So pushing these different things are, I think, going to be really important. And I'm, excited about how and where people are building stuff on top of this infrastructure. Cool. Okay. Just 2 more slides, really. You too can help out. That's great. First, we've got a forum. We're running Discourse. You can go log in. It actually uses OIDC and @protocol auth. So when you click the auth button, you're actually logging in with your @protocol identity and account. And that's super cool because it's one less thing that you've got to create a new identity for, right? Hooray. Love that. We're really developing in public here. There's a whole lot of discussion around things like localization and internationalization and what is the size and scope of features in Smoke Signal versus things that are existing outside of it, Major announcements are going on the forum and on the blog and on social media. So like, go look there for questions, feedback, comments, things that you may not want to post out in the wild, or if you just, subscribe to too many people and miss stuff. That happens quite a bit, I think, with people who have more than 100 followers or followees. Cool. Next, a lot of this is out of pocket. Like, I'm very fortunate for where I am in life, but the cost of things are increasing, and this is a community-driven project, and I like to keep it that way. So, go give $20. Yeah, I have no problem asking for that and being transparent about how much stuff costs. That's just the name of the game. No one's donating infrastructure or resources to run this stuff yet. Open to it if someone wants to. And also, I'm really keen on running and expanding the footprint. I'd like to run a Europe or African or South Pacific instance of Smoke Signal in those areas out of, the core jurisdiction of the parallel areas. That would be fantastic. And I think getting people to understand that they can run the same application globally creates parallelization of the data and the exposition of and the exposure of that data. So that would be a really good thing. And frankly speaking, your dollars and your friends' dollars and your strangers' dollars make that happen. Also, shameless plug, go give $20 to Black Sky. They actually deal with a whole lot of different problems that I don't deal with. So I'm just giving them a plug because, Rudy and his stuff's cool. So give them $10 too. If you're like, oh, I've got $15, what do I do? Give them 10 and give me 5. I'm fine with that. Like that's really okay. And that's it. I've talked for 59 minutes and 12 seconds. Hooray.
Awesome.
I'm gonna
Thanks.
stop sharing. Let's do Q&A.
Hooray. Thanks, Nick.
Yeah. Questions?
Go for it, Kata.
Sorry, I feel like I'm monopolizing the questions here. Um, so I wrote down some questions as you were going through, so that when we were done, for the event publication, there are times, especially I've noticed with like a meetup and stuff like that, there are times where people, especially in marginalized community groups and stuff like that, will want their registration and their acceptance of going to an event to remain private. And I know on the side conversation we were having at MLS. Um, do you have you got a plan on how to deal with that, or are you just waiting for something like the E2EE to get done or MLS to get done or whatnot? Sorry.
Private content. I think that's difficult, and I'm super interested. I think there's two things, right? I think that there's private blobs and there's private records, and I expect and anticipate private records to be created in parallel with some sort of separate PDS, some sort of separate repository equivalent, where you still have your core of identity associated with your PDS until that gets delegated out, which I think would also be a really, really good idea. But that's a separate can of worms. I don't love the idea of having to encrypt stuff in records and providing content that way. I think it's kind of messy. I honestly have no idea what they're going to do with it, and I'd love to be a part of the dialogue, but I just truly don't know.
So, Gautam, I answered there as well, and lots of the people on this call are unmeshed in private data. Private data is the shorthand for private records. Let's put it that way. Private blobs are another thing, and Nick has some interesting gating with a lot of his permission stuff. He's done some things with being able to gate access to blobs. That's not RSVPs. Um, um, there has been no broadly public work other than some GitHub threads on how might private data work. There's a bunch of people in the community outside of Bluesky that are interested in getting started on that work. I'm going to drop a link to a brand new RFC that has had basically, I think it actually still has 0 stars right now, because I haven't wanted to share it widely, that a community member put together as a proof of concept. If you're interested and have skills in cryptography and distributed systems and can put serious time into both spec review and writing code, contact me privately, and I'm happy to include you in that discussion, but I'm going to keep the bar pretty high. This is really, really hard stuff, and it's the same sort of thing where Black Sky is doing some work on it and a few other things, and we want to both make sure it's done really well in a way that works for lots of people and ideally gets accepted into the protocol. And we also need to be super clear with a lot of the people who don't understand protocol, don't care, want safety yesterday, who are like, we don't care about decentralization. We don't care if it's locked into Bluesky. And we're like, it's got to be done correctly. Hank.
Hey, the external ticketing platform linking is pretty cool, and like I think a pretty nice example of the ethos of this community trying to distribute all of these like types of little tasks to all of the services that um, we can in the world. With that said, any plans or thoughts, maybe long term, about monetizing this type of service? That seems to be where most event platforms try and like, because it's close to the money of ticketing, uh, siphon off little bits to actually run their service. Have you given that any thought?
Man, I would really love to like fuck up Ticketmaster and like just radically change how ticketing an event works. I have a humble opinion that we could encode uh, two really basic things in public record. A seed used to validate timing, kind of like FIDO works, and then a QR code seed for generating time-based QR code generation in a mobile app. And I think there's a lot of really awesome stuff that's been worked on for mobile to mobile interaction through either NFC or through some of Bailey and CJ and other folks building frameworks and libraries that do awesome stuff with interacting with that protocol. I would love to be able to just like pull up a phone that has a copy of my RSVP that has been attested by the ticket seller using my QR code seed, show it, let another app scan it, see the fact that it's signed by my identity, which they should have a record because they fucking sold me a ticket, and then poof, validate that it's there. Oh, great. Sorry, I thought mic off and I misread because I was swearing too much. I apologize. Anyway, I think that is totally doable. I think mobile to mobile interaction is totally within the realm of possibility. And user hyperlocal community-centered ticketing, um, either using US currency or other currencies, whatever currency people want to use. I only care about the proof that something was paid for and something was received. Like I actually don't want to weigh into the actual purchasing stuff. Like Stella has been doing quite a bit with wallet linking and some other really interesting things. Um, yeah, I think that would be fantastic. And if we really want to like rock the boat, we provide communities a way to not spend $200 a year on, a glorified Yahoo group. Um, I'm talking about meetup.com. And
Yeah.
then, even more expensive ticketing processes that rely on all of the technology created by open source communities anyway.
I think so Nick said smoke signal is infrastructure, and we gave the emailer as an example. Um, this was my first time. I am a smoke signal user. I just archived our Luma calendar that I had been running. I've been writing a ton in the forum about feature requests. Sometimes basically I hit submit and Nick goes like, "Oh yeah, you're right." And then we'll just like implement it. And I'm like, I'm just writing features over here. You don't have to implement them immediately. He's like, "It's fine." Which doesn't scale. And some of these things are actually very different products. That's what I've been struggling with in thinking about Smoke Signal. So Meetup is different than Luma. How is it different? What are the flows like? Who pays? Where's the tensions and other things like that? Some of the ticking stuff is super clear. I think that people will pay for a complete product that includes email and some messaging, right? And that shouldn't be in core. Or maybe, one of the things I need to write up after I kind of mainly did this with Ghost or Nick's Taito integration, that's really, really, really valuable for an organizer that's actually very hard to code. And can I pay $5 a month or $50 a year for having my Ghost newsletter be linked to my events? And when I say Ghost, add in WordPress or anything else. There's a bunch of really janky solutions. And so there's probably like if anyone wants to build a monetizable product on top of Smoke Signal, go for it. There's like half a dozen at least.
Absolutely. And I think the really important thing there, and this is something that is like lost in, some capitalistic views, right? Smoke Signal enforces the credible exit. Your events and your RSVPs are public record. They are owned by the people who created them, right? If you want to create a ticketing process that supports that and you have a mobile app that is, expanding on these open technologies, that's fantastic because you're still giving users a credible exit, and that's like that's the ethos. That is the how can we allow people to build things, or how can we enable and promote people to build things that support identity mobility and data ownership and control, and also that concept of a credible exit. Because if it's a lexicon community RSVP, an event, and if we're using signatures and attestation, and if we're using lexicon community badges and the bsky.app primitives, these are all there that anyone can then import. And how cool is it for you as a community organizer to say, yeah, I'm selling, $10 tickets to the live band this Tuesday. I'm using, smoke signaler or something for now. But 6 months from now, that app may go away, or you may find a better use and you want to use something else, and you don't lose your community in the process.
or you build it directly into your community.
Yeah.
Right. So James is on this call. James is working with Gander Social in Canada, which is standing up an instance of Bluesky that's going to be mobile first. So initially microblogging, but maybe a little more pink sky or Instagram-y shaped, and with red colors instead of blue colors. And I've said, hey, events for Canada might be a really cool next lexicon to do. No one has done this yet. Gander's nowhere close to this and needs funding and support and a bunch more things. But you start looking at, oh, right, we do want to eat Facebook groups and Facebook events and some of these other things and have them run in country and so on, right? So we have a path here, and it has to go beyond microblogging.
The other part about the credible exit piece is the data is there, and if people want to build new things on top of it, they just can.
Yeah, exactly. Any final question? And then we're going to go off the record, and we can go extra spicy for a little bit for people who want. Any final questions for Nick? Amazing, Nick. Thank you so much. Congratulations on 1 year. Congratulations to you and Claude on 1 year. Thank you so much for all the work that we've done, and thanks everyone for joining us.
Thank you, everyone.